Hello, my name is Connie Lee Montgomery. I live in South Carolina. It is the southeastern part of the United States of America. I am a person living with factor 7 deficiency, pemphigus vulgaris, and diabetes, hypertension, and stage 4 chronic kidney disease. I am here today to share with you a bit of my health journey, which has been pretty much devastating. It is a roller coaster for persons that look like myself from where I am from, even though I'm a retired occupational therapist, a health professional, to obtain and get the type of comprehensive health care that I would like for myself, for those from my community, and for all people. The reason I state this is because for years, my mother and I tried to get help with the symptoms that I was showing from a little girl well into young adulthood, which was constant nosebleeds that lasted for more than 8 to 10 minutes, bruising that would just spontaneously pop up all over my body, and joint issues that just followed me all through young adulthood and limited some of the activities that I could participate in at school. With my mother's culture being Gullah Geechee, there were some activities we did not do anyway. The way she was reared and the way she reared us was what happens in the home stayed in the home, because she knew how society and other people would view us if we talked about the symptoms that we shared in the home, especially myself having a bleeding issue. So we didn't want that stigma or that taboo labeling. So mother encouraged me from a very young age, do not share the things that was happening to me. So I always carried an extra change of clothing. I did not spend nights at my friends' homes when they had slumber sleepovers. I didn't do any of those things. Mother made certain that I learned to protect myself at a young age because she knew society and even those in healthcare would not believe me, because they did not believe us in times of desperation when we reached out to them to tell them about the extreme nosebleeds, when we reached out to them to tell them about the bruising over my body. So I learned to just put that on the back burner, or not even on the stove, and just pursue my education to become a better person delivering healthcare in the healthcare system of the United States of America. I became an occupational therapist and worked very hard to change the system, all while still dealing with my own complex care health needs. I got into a car accident, and that car accident changed my life. I was blessed because I met an emergency room physician that noted from my lab work and other tests something was not right. That healthcare professional contacted a hematologist, and the hematologist and that health professional, emergency physician, they, while I was in the hospital for an extensive period of time, ran tests and did all the things they needed to. And what we knew was present ever since I was a child was finally diagnosed, and diagnosed accurately. He discovered in my mid-30s that I had a bleeding disorder, and it was that bleeding disorder that was only diagnosed after the car accident that changed my world. Initially, when I found out about it, I went through a serious moment of denial, and I would even say depression. But working through that with my faith, because I'm a strong believer in God, and working with other healthcare professionals to help me talk through it and work through it, I learned that even being diagnosed after having 2 children delivered by emergency C-section and almost losing my life in that I could make it and that I could make a difference by sharing my healthcare story. And so I began to do that. But I was very cautious even in doing that. I wrote a book with a friend of mine for 30 years called You're Not Just a Number, Putting Care Back into Healthcare. But I made certain that that book wasn't even published until after my mother had died and left this world. Because I knew what my mother and her Gullah Geechee upbringing believed, and I knew what she had instilled in me, and I wanted to respect that. So culture plays a big part in people and them receiving health care. Now, let's speak to the healthcare practitioners for all those years that dismissed and did not hear or listen or believe me when I, as well as my mother, shared my symptomology. We did that for a number of years, long before I was diagnosed in my mid-30s with factor VII deficiency. If only one of them would have listened closely and then actively evaluated, asked more questions, and sought answers to the problems, then maybe I, and I'm sure so many other people, would not suffer in silence with the health issues that's going on in their lives. I want this message to be shared far and wide. Healthcare practitioners, we need to deeply listen to the people sharing with us about what is going on with their bodies. I looked into clinical trials and research for myself. But with so many of my diagnoses and diseases being so far gone, I learned that I would not be able to participate in those clinical research trials. And that too was disappointing. But I wish what I knew about long before my illnesses and their progression, clinical trials. I also wish that the information was in lay language and readable for everyone so everyone can understand it and comprehend it. And I am thankful that these tools are being designed so that everyone, regardless of where they're located geographically, can find the information they need, and hopefully in time before their diseases, diagnoses, and illnesses progress to the point where there is no help. There is another piece of information I would like to share. And I think what would help with community health and research and basic care of people is for individuals to look at each other and see the whole person, not just the diagnosis that the person has been sent to your way for services or care for, but the whole person. Learn about all of those social factors and social determinants of health that affect people's lives. This is important because all of that impacts one's health. I know for me, I'm 54 years old and I do not have a living mother, a living father, living paternal or maternal grandparents, and all 11 of my aunts and uncles are deceased, except one aunt on my father's side. I say all of that to say this. I believe and know that some of their deaths were premature because they didn't have access to the health care or the clinical trials that they may have needed and benefited from, or knowledge, or even knowledge of those medications, clinical trials, or information. I would like for healthcare professionals, when they have the opportunity and they're knowledgeable about these advances in care and interventions and medications, to please share it with your patients and direct them to places and processes where they can go and study about this information for themselves. And most importantly, believe people when they tell you about their symptoms and the things going on in their bodies, because they are experts on their bodies, because they are with their bodies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month, 365 days a year. So it's very important that we listen and listen closely to what people are sharing. And then look at the communities and the individuals you're serving and see how you can incentivize and help them. If there is some type of compensation you can offer them for participating in your research, in your clinical trials, do so. But find out what intrinsically motivates them and what them or their communities need. Make certain that it is a true partnership so that healthcare is beginning to listen to the people it is supposed to care for. Thank you so much for letting me share a part of my healthcare journey, and I appreciate your time.